What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is digital cash for the internet without banks or financial institutions. The Bitcoin network, using a distributed database without a central point of attack or a failure, records all transactions between Bitcoin addresses, making that information persistent. Bitcoins only exist as balances associated with a Bitcoin address. What you actually need to keep is the private key that is like a password made of 256 bits, that is 256 zeros and ones, usually expressed in a much more compact form using hexadecimal numbering and hidden in a hermetic file called a wallet. A private key and a Bitcoin address form a key pair, and a key pair is like a key and its locker. But importantly, their mathematical properties are very particular because it is possible to calculate in some fractions of a second the Bitcoin address and in a key pair from its private key. But the reverse would take countless millions, if not billions of years, as it would have to be done by trial and error, even if quantum computers were used. The network uses this key pair cryptography to authenticate ownership of the Bitcoins when doing a transaction. Bitcoin mining is the process of assembling the latest transactions from about up to 10 minutes ago in a way that they become permanent in the history of chain transactions. When such a block of assembled transactions is compiled and added to the history, the ones that devoted computers resources to achieve it are rewarded. And this happens every 10 minutes or so, putting more Bitcoins into circulation. Only the lucky miner that was able to compile the latest block of transactions is rewarded to his designated Bitcoin address. But usually miners work in mining pools, just like co-ops, and share the rewards according to computer resources devoted collectively. Basically, in return for the miner's contribution to maintain the network and ensure more and more irrevocability of the history of the transactions, Bitcoins are generated and given to the miners as a reward, putting more Bitcoins in circulation. The mining reward is halved every 4 years. In the first 4 years, 2009 to 2013, it was 50 BTC every 10 minutes. Now it is half, that is 25 BTC every 10 minutes, to the lucky miner that is using brute force to able to compile the new block and make the next piece of the puzzle, the recent history, to fit in. The more computer power the network has, the more impossible it gets to invent the history of the transactions that get stacked. But Bitcoins are hard-coded to be released in a timely fashion, and that's actually the basis of their scarcity and existence. It gets very technical on what actually makes a new block, that is, a compiled list of the latest transactions to be accepted. But basically, it has to do with checking if the data and header of such a candidate new block, after certain cryptographic compressions and mathematical transformations, is actually valid for the difficulty puzzle that is set. The software adjusts the difficulty puzzle so that a new mining reward is made roughly every 10 minutes, no matter what actually is the amount of the computational power of the whole network. The difficulty problem is simply the number of leading zeros that the data of the candidate block after cryptographic math has halved. Only trial and error, that is brute force, changing the nonce, an arbitrary number, and checking for a match, can find if the block is valid for that matter. The history of past transactions is called the blockchain. The block is simply a list of a few thousand transactions. There is a size limit to it, formatted with a header. Blocks are chained in the sense of having the ID of the previous block in its header and being, for that matter, a linked list where new blocks get stacked on previous ones. The word mining is used in the analogy of gold mining, where gold is made available following a curve like that of a logarithmic function approaching a limit. The limit of 21 million bitcoins is hard-coded in the distributed software implementation in a very timed fashion and results from the accumulation of 50 bitcoins reward each 10 minutes during the first 4 years, summing above 10 million and a half bitcoins plus half 25 bitcoins reward each 10 minutes during the following 4 years, summing up above 15 million bitcoins plus half 12.5 billion bitcoins reward each 10 minutes during the following 4 years, summing up above 18 million bitcoins around the year 2021, and so on and so forth. The reward halving every 4 years till it doesn't add nothing to approach the theoretical limit of 21 million, and more precisely 20 million, followed by a lot of nines, leaving just 2 cents of a Bitcoin to reach 21 million by the year of 2140. But much, much before that, even before 2030, we will reach the 20 million Bitcoins in circulation, more than 95% of the theoretical limit of 21 million. This protocol implementation results from a few lines of code in the distributed software, and everyone would have to agree to change it. Otherwise, incompatibility with the rest of the network would arise to anyone trying to change his own version of the software. And remember, Bitcoin is valuable and brings about to this material world something that it had not before. That's why miners are paid for bringing about this valuable network.